The billionaire's voice cut through the silence. "Here, take my card. Spend freely. No limits." 3 women froze, their eyes wide with disbelief. None of them knew this was not a gift. It was a test. And when one of them returned with a small, quiet purchase, the billionaire's heart shattered. He was a man who owned skyscrapers, fleets of cars, and oceans of wealth. To the world, he was untouchable, feared, admired, envied. But in that quiet moment, he sat across from 3 women, placing a single black credit card on the polished oak table. His hand didn't shake, but his eyes carried something only a few would notice: a deep hunger to know the truth about people's hearts. "Take it," he said softly. "Buy whatever you wish, no limits. But choose carefully." The room filled with tension. The women were silent, their breaths shallow, their gazes locked on that piece of plastic that could open doors to anything they had ever dreamed of. He leaned back, watching. His wealth had brought him everything except certainty about love, loyalty, and sincerity. He had been betrayed before, not by enemies, but by those closest. This time, he wanted to see the truth without words, without promises, just choices. One woman, dressed in designer heels, was the first to snatch the card. She smiled sweetly, but her eyes sparkled with calculation. She was the type who measured affection in gifts and power. The second, modest and careful, hesitated. She wasn't as quick, but temptation was a fire she could not ignore. She reached for the card with hands that trembled, not from fear but from desire buried beneath her surface calm. And the third, she didn't move. She stood quietly in the corner, her uniform simple, her presence almost invisible. The billionaire's Maid. She hadn't been called into the room for this game, yet she was watching, listening, standing silently like she always did. Days passed. The first woman returned with her arms heavy with luxury. Bags from Paris, shoes glittering with jewels, perfumes wrapped in golden paper. She laid them out like trophies, smiling at him. "This is what your world feels like," she whispered, hoping he would admire her taste. The second woman arrived later. Her purchases were more subtle jewelry, elegant dresses, spa treatments, not as loud, but still dripping in indulgence. "I chose things that would make me look beautiful for you," she said softly, her voice laced with charm. The billionaire nodded, but his face betrayed nothing. And then came the maid. She walked into his office late at night, hesitant, holding a single small bag, not designer, not branded, just a plain white paper bag. She placed it on his desk and bowed her head. "Sir," she said gently, "I used your card today. I hope you're not upset." He frowned, curious. "What did you buy?" She opened the bag and pulled out something so simple, so ordinary. It struck him harder than all the gold and diamonds the others had paraded before him. Inside was a thick wool blanket and a bundle of fresh food. "The winter is cold," she said, her voice shaking, "and the old man who sleeps near the station, he hasn't eaten in days." I thought, maybe this would keep him alive a little longer. The billionaire stared at her, speechless. For a man who had seen billion-dollar deals, who had watched fortunes rise and fall, who had faced ruthless boardrooms without blinking, this moment broke him. Because her choice was not about herself. It was about someone who had nothing to give her back. "The true measure of a heart," he whispered to himself, "is not how much it takes, but how much it gives." Her eyes filled with tears. She hadn't done it for recognition. She hadn't even expected him to know. She only wanted to help. In that silence, memories from his past flooded him. He remembered nights as a young boy, hiding in the corner of a tiny kitchen, watching his mother skip her meals so he could eat. He remembered the biting winters when his father's hands bled from labor, just to buy firewood. He remembered promising himself that one day he would never let hunger or cold touch his family again. And now, this quiet, unseen soul had reached into that hidden wound with nothing more than a blanket and bread. It was not wealth that moved him. It was remembrance. The next morning, whispers spread. The 2 women who had flaunted their riches waited for praise, for promises of a future with him. But instead, they found silence. The billionaire called them together. His voice was steady, calm. but carried the weight of truth. A person's heart is revealed by what they do when no one is watching. You used my gift to glorify yourselves, but she, he pointed gently toward the maid, used it to lift someone from despair. The room went still. One woman's face flushed red with shame. The other looked away, her pride crumbling. But the maid, she stood frozen, uncertain why he was even speaking of her. He turned to her, his voice softer now. You reminded me that even the smallest kindness can carry more weight than the heaviest gold. Wealth without compassion is poverty of the soul. His words became a quiet storm that stayed with everyone who heard them. The richest person, aside slowly, is not the one who has the most, but the one who gives the most. The women lowered their heads, their own reflections bitter and heavy, and the maid, with trembling hands, held back tears she could no longer hide. In that moment, she was no longer invisible. She was the mirror he needed, the reminder that humanity is not measured in millions, but in moments of sacrifice. News of the test spread beyond his mansion. Employees whispered about it, and soon the world knew the story. Not because the billionaire wanted fame, but because sometimes the truth travels faster than wealth. And as people heard it, many began to look at their own lives. What would they have bought? For themselves or for someone else? In the end, the billionaire didn't just reward the maid with money. He gave her something greater. Trust, respect, and a place in his heart that no diamond could buy. She had reminded him that behind every fortune lies a fragile truth. Wealth fades, but kindness echoes forever. We often think that tests of character come in grand, dramatic wallys, but sometimes it's as simple as a card, a choice, and a moment of truth. Remember this: we rise not by the wealth we hold, but by the lives we touch. What about you? If you were given that card, what would you have bought? Would it be for yourself, or for someone who needed it more? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe and join us for more stories that uncover the unseen power of kindness and silent strength.